As always, folks, you can always email me at dearcrabby9@gmail.com, and you can always call me at 312-725-9973 and leave a brief message, and I will try to answer your questions. But as always, folks, I have to tell you, I am not a psychologist, I am not a psychiatrist, and I never intend to be one, but I will help you if I can. So the first question that we have today is, cut them loose in Alabama. How should I tell two very nice guys that I'm in love with someone else? I can't find a nice way to do so without lying to them. There's nothing wrong with the relationships, and they're both very promising relationships. However, I'm very much in love with someone else, and I don't feel that it's fair to continue to lead these guys on. No, it's not, actually. It sounds like this. You're having some trouble with this, but this is really a part of life, isn't it? And I don't know. How should you tell two very nice guys that I'm in love with someone else? Sooner the better, actually. For one, you should do this sooner rather than later. And how do you tell them this? You just have to sit down and just tell them and thank them for what they've done. And you just explain it. You just have to be honest. And like I said, you just have to do that sooner rather than later. You're right. It isn't fair to lead them on. So I hope you do, and I wish you the best of luck. The other question that we have is sad in Wisconsin. Sad in Wisconsin. A couple of years ago, I became depressed of my mom's mental state of being. I got better, but now it's happening all over again. I've been diagnosed with depression, and I don't want to tell my family about it at all. Should I clue them in on what's happening in my life, or should I leave them out of it for good? Well, this situation is interesting because I don't know what your mother's mental state of being is, but I'm assuming that it might be something like depression. Or it could be really anything because you didn't tell me. But what I think you should probably tell your family that you do have a problem with depression, because I think it's something that if you don't do this, it could overwhelm you, and your family could in fact help you with this in so many different ways. So I would encourage you to tell your family about that. And I think that you should tell them that you're having trouble with whatever your mom's mental state of being is. And I don't know if you've been kind of pushing away from her because of that, but it would help sort of explain where you're coming from. I think you should be honest with them. I think you should clue them in on what's happening in your life, because I think that in doing so, you actually might end up, your journey might end up helping your mother through her journey. And honesty is always the best policy. But I do wish you luck. The next one that we have is Broken, Iowa. I always seem to spend too much around Christmas. Who doesn't? After I buy all the gifts for everyone on my list and total everything up, I've spent more than I should be spending. But what else can I do? Well, I think that you just have to be within your means. And I think they will understand. You don't have to go out of your way to buy these super expensive gifts. In a way, it's sort of like you want to buy their love. And I don't think that's the way to go about this. I think you should be honest with yourself and just buy what you can. Try to find gifts that are a lot more inexpensive, that are still meaningful to them and to you. And it's going to take a little bit of work, and it's going to take a little bit of thought. But I think that you need to just sort of spend some time trying to figure out, instead of buying something for, let's say, for example, $100, what can I get them for $25 or $30 that I know that they can use, and will get the idea across that you care about them and you love them, which is really what Christmas is all about. That's what I think you should do. So the next one that we have is Perplexed in Seattle. This is kind of interesting. It says, my parents always insist that I make the trip to the East Coast to see them on Christmas, but I can't tell them that I can't afford the trip, and I do not want to ask them for the money. What should I tell them? I'm not sure what the problem is with telling them that you can't afford the trip. There's something in that statement that I don't quite understand. Maybe it's that you're in a little bit of debt and you don't want your parents to know this. But I don't think you should ask them for the money, but I think that you should tell them that you can't afford the trip. And again, here's another situation. I think you just basically have to be honest with them. They're your parents. They're not someone that you're trying to impress. But I do think that the first step is going to be honest with them and tell them you just can't simply afford the trip. And more than likely, they will come to you and say, well, we can help. So that would get you out of asking them for money. But honesty, just be honest with them and tell them you just can't do it this year. And tell them why. Maybe it's expenses that you've had that have come up that you just don't have it this year. But I think if you're honest with them that way, I think you really might be surprised. And they might just come to you and say, you know what, son or daughter, we can help you with that. We understand. Just honesty. That's the best policy. Folks, I want to thank you for joining me. And again, dearcrabby9@gmail.com with your questions, or you can always call, like I said, at 312-725-9973. I'm Frank. We'll look for you next time.